UFC finally made it to Saudi Arabia. We had a hell of a card. I enjoyed the main card. I thought the whole card was great. Obviously, a different time zone, so we were able to have afternoon fights. I thought that was fun, but in my opinion, it delivered. A lot of people talking about the fact that there was no ring girls or any women in general in the arena, which is kind of crazy. But a lot of fun stuff, a lot of good things to talk about. Here's my full reaction. I'm the MMA Casual. Be sure to subscribe. Let's get right to it. First fight of the main card, we have Johnny Walker versus Volkan Ozdemir. Guys, I picked Johnny Walker. I'm not going to lie to you. An exciting fighter, a little crazy when he's in that octagon, but I just thought we were going to see something different from him than we've seen in the last couple of years. I don't know why, but what a silly mistake. Volkan just coming in so technical, so composed, and it was a quick fight. Just a knockout within 2 minutes and 28 seconds. He laid out Johnny Walker just completely asleep. I got to find that picture and put it up right now. Mr. Sandman is the song I chose to post that. Guys, really bad stuff from Johnny Walker. And now I'm kind of leaning towards, man, does this guy need to retire? I mean, are we really reaching the end? I mean, his chin has been non-existent in the last few years. Some tough fights, definitely tougher opponents now, but it's not looking good for Johnny Walker. I mean, he has quite the road to overcome to get back into title contention. Next up, the Pirate, Shara Bullet Magomedov against Antonio Tricoli. I mean, we knew what was going to happen here, guys. It was supposed to be this all-out maul, this guy just crashing through and breaking through Antonio Tricoli. That's not what happened. Shara Bullet, I'm not going to say he's overrated, but he is painted as this boogeyman, right? Missing that one eye. He's an absolute killer. All these clips of him in the past. I think he's a good fighter. But this is a guy who, in my opinion, is going to have some trouble when he gets to the ranked fighters. This is a guy that, if paired with the right fighter, is having a nightmare of a night and potentially getting that loss at that time. Definitely a better fight than his initial UFC appearance, where we saw a lot of issues against Bruno Silva. There was no takedown defense. We saw him kind of like tire out. This is a guy who's very kick heavy. His striking is very technical. There is some grappling, but he's not at the same level as a lot of guys when we start talking about takedowns and grappling. And I think that's the issue. Antonio Tricoli did pretty decent against him. I thought he had a better fight than anyone expected. At the end of the day, it ended in the third round, and it was a knockout finish by Shara, but he didn't look all that crazy. Again, heavy on the kicks, very Yair Rodriguez style, in my opinion. He's really fun to watch, but there's holes in his game. But what I will say is I thought there was tremendous improvement. I thought he did a lot better with the takedown defense. But again, I think there's a lot of holes in this game. I think they have to be very careful how they build this guy, because if he's given the wrong fighter, this Shara Bullet excitement is all gonna come crashing down. Dana White, after the fight, was asked if we'd see this guy in the States. He said we're gonna keep him out of it. So we're not even gonna be seeing Shara fight that often. I think we're gonna see him in all the Saudi Arabia cards, things like that, everything that they do in the Middle East, which usually they do once, maybe twice a year. So I think that's what we're getting from Shara, but we'll see what happens there. Good fight nonetheless. Next up, Kelvin El Gordito Gastelum versus Daniel Rodriguez. Now, this is just a disappointing fighter at this point. Kelvin Gastelum has been around for quite some time in the UFC, has proven himself. He's been fighting the top of the middleweight division for a long time. Recently, he tried to, venture down into the welterweight division, which, if you look at his body, you look at his height, his body composition, this guy should probably be even fighting at the lightweight division. And he's been fighting at the middleweight division and holding his own. I mean, he gave Israel Adesanya one of the toughest fights he's ever had as a champion. This guy had like at least a 12-week camp, and he couldn't make weight. And the worst part about this is that the week before the fight is when this gentleman decides to tell his opponent, hey, I'm not making 185. And props to Daniel Rodriguez, a veteran, tough dude. He agrees to it. Now, he has to know high risk, high reward. I mean, there in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, did Kelvin Gastelum not know weeks ago that he wasn't going to be fighting at 185. I think that's strategic. I think he knows and ultimately decides to tell his opponent later on. And a lot of people don't see how serious that is, how serious the weight change at the last minute is. But at the end of the day, you're gearing your whole camp to a set weight. If Daniel Rodriguez knows this a month ago, guess what? He's packing on more muscle. He's more comfortable with his diet. The cardio is different. Everything changes when you're cutting weight. And it wasn't 5 pounds, it wasn't 10, it was 15-pound difference, and that's a big difference with these guys and their body composition, and of course their cardio. I think Kelvin Gastelum set Daniel Rodriguez up, and Daniel Rodriguez said, hey, it is what it is, I'm still fighting. He paid the price. Obviously, Kelvin Gastelum lost like 30% of his purse or something. I don't know the exact number, but he lost some money. But it was just kind of embarrassing. Kelvin Gastelum gets on the mic and he's like, oh, I'm a company guy. Dana, Hunter, forgive me. I know this has happened before, and that's where you draw the line. Like, bullshit, man. If you were really sorry, this doesn't happen for a third time in your career trying to get to the welterweight division. Fight at middleweight. And if I'm Dana White, which I'm not, obviously, I don't let this guy agree to a welterweight fight because he's fucking up other fighters. He's messing up your card. And at the end of the day, you're putting that other fighter in a really bad position because Daniel Rodriguez is in Saudi Arabia. He's been training 13 weeks, getting mentally and physically ready for this fight. And now all of a sudden, a Godito couldn't hold off on his tacos and he can't make weight. Of course, he's going to say yes. He's already in Saudi Arabia. Why would Daniel Rodriguez say no? So I think he screws everybody over, and it's whack at this point, man. You're a professional at the top of your game. You get paid for this. It's different. It's not like somebody on a diet or someone trying to do a 5K at home. No, this is what this guy does. He's a professional athlete. So just very disappointing. Next up, Sergey Pavlovich, Alexander Volkov. A fight I never would have thought would have gone the distance. A lot of people actually predicted that. I didn't think so. And my prediction was Sergey Pavlovich is chasing around Volkov around the octagon. Volkov trying to keep the distance, doing what he can with his teeps, with his kicks, and I thought Sergey Pavlovich was gonna obviously sometimes find his distance, get in there, put him out. But that's not what happened. Sergey Pavlovich did have a couple of opportunities to land big, but it just didn't go through. Alexander Volkov just had a beautiful game plan. He did exactly that. He stayed away from the center of the octagon, wasn't really pushing forward. His jab was very effective to throw Sergey Pavlovich off, but Sergey Pavlovich wasn't able to make it the bar fight he wanted because at the end of the day, Sergey really just needs one. And he actually has the reach advantage, but he just couldn't catch Volkov. So Volkov just a spectacular job of keeping up with your game plan, hitting him with the kicks, the teeps, a great jab to keep him at bay. And Pavlovich had nothing for him. Pavlovich got the worst of all the exchanges. I thought it was 30-27. I know there was a 29-28 scorecard. I didn't see it that way. Props to Alexander Volkov. I thought he really proved himself, and he'll be fighting for a title soon. Props to him. No hate. Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov, the main event of this fight card. And boy, did this deliver. I was concerned. I was one of those individuals who was very worried about Robert Whittaker taking on an up-and-comer in Ikram Aliskerov. But what I forgot was how bad of a man Robert Whittaker is. I mean, I hate to say he's a gatekeeper, but I mean, this guy is the best gatekeeper the UFC's ever seen. And I hate to call him that. He's been champ before, but he truly is. If this guy is not fighting for a belt, he's killing somebody. He's just taking everybody out. And this was really quite the jump from Ikram Aliskerov. For those of you who don't know, he was supposed to fight last week. That fight falls through. So they give him the Robert Whittaker fight once Hamzat pulled out of the fight. And this kid on a week's notice says, yeah, I'll fight Robert Whittaker. Again, high risk, high reward. If you beat Robert Whittaker, you're lining yourself up for a number one spot or a title shot. It's that simple. So it was the right call on Ikram Aliskerov's part, but I think he was nowhere near Robert Whittaker's elite ability. I mean, this fight ended in the first round. And again, there's a lot of factors. Short notice for both guys. Even though, they both had camps, they're preparing for other guys. That's a disadvantage for both of them. But Ikram Aliskerov 7 days ago was in Vegas. Now you got to find your way to Saudi Arabia, change up your camp. He probably already had started the weight cut from last week. So there's a lot of things that didn't really make sense for Ikram Aliskerov. The only thing was this big opportunity. And I don't blame him for taking it, but this is the type of shit that happens when you're dealing with the elite. Someone who's been elite for the last 9 years in his division. I mean, Robert Whittaker's only faced the best since like 2017. So here he is. First round knockout and a beautiful sequence. Just catches him, wobbles him, throws a kick that misses, and then just has Ikram Aliskerov up against the cage. He feints a left hook and then just hits him with this beautiful right uppercut that ultimately just drops Ikram Aliskerov. He gets a few punches while he's on the ground on all fours, and the ref stops it. And Robert Whittaker finds himself in the title conversation again. I mean, what are we waiting for here now? I love it. I love Robert Whittaker. And when we talk about who does Robert Whittaker fight next, I mean, I know Sean Strickland doesn't want to fight unless it's for the title, but Sean Strickland, in my opinion, is a joke for the UFC at this point. Yeah, he has some fans in the States and stuff, but he's a boring fighter. He's proven that time and time again. I think with the last couple fights combined, the Jared Cannonier fight, the Izzy fight, the Dricus fight, and now his last fight against Paulo Costa, name an exciting fight. The only fight that was fun to watch was him and Izzy, just because nobody expected him to beat Izzy. But other than that, Sean Strickland is a very boring fighter. So if he's not fighting for the title, give him Robert Whittaker. Change it up. Make Robert work a little more. But other than that, I don't think Sean Strickland fights the winner of Dricus and Israel Adesanya. I think that's a bad call. And again, I think the UFC exposed this guy, and they just don't like that. You got to be an entertainer. It's part of being in the UFC. Let me know what you think so below, guys. I know I just yapped a little bit, but I like to come on here and talk about the cards. Let me know what you think. Be sure to subscribe.